It's the month of June, and it's June baseball. No, not Major League Baseball. No, not college baseball, but it's CIF Southern Section playoff baseball, high school baseball coming at you. What do the brackets look like? Find out in this next edition of Sideline Sports Podcast. Welcome to Sideline Sports Podcast. If you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. Man, it's just a great time of the year. It's summer. I mean, school is no longer in session, but hey, there's still some business that needs to be taken care of. CIF Southern Section playoff baseball now almost in action. I am the host of Sideline Sports Podcast, Alex Naveja, where if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast, a source of your SoCal sports news. And man, we've got a full chat room here today. I've got Mark Vargas down below me, NCAA football, NFL, also combat sports, and NBA insider. Then on the bottom left-hand corner is Jose Duran. He's in charge of all soccer action. And to my left is Nathan Percy, SoCal News Group reporter and the voice of Orange Lutheran baseball. Nathan, how you doing today? It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Doing well, and again, thanks for having me on. I know we chatted a few months ago for the Super Bowl, and it's a pleasure to be back on and talking with you guys again today.
How about you, Mark? How's it going, man? I know we just saw each other a week ago.
Hanging on by a thread. You know, I'm very excited. We're talking baseball today because you will not hear anything good coming from my mouth if we were talking about the NBA. So let's talk baseball.
What about you, Jose? I know you had a really nice Saturday morning. You were tuning into the soccer that was going on this weekend.
Yeah, it was great. You know, Labor Day weekend, can't complain. I wish it would have been a longer weekend at that, but it was good. We had good soccer, good sports. And like Mark said, excited to talk about CIF baseball and see all the action that's going to happen soon.
Absolutely. The Division I bracket, it's already looking pretty good. Nathan and I were already taking a look at it, and we were talking about it. But before we even talk about that, this episode of Sideline Sports Podcast was brought to you by Manscaped. Make sure to go on manscaped.com. Use our promo code SIDELINE20 to save yourself 20% off on any of the products that you guys may need. I have used just about every product that's in there on the website. It has been great, top-notch stuff, such precise shave and such precise engineering. It's used by over 2 million men worldwide, so why not be one of those 2 million and even go up to 3 million men worldwide? If you guys want to save some money, once again, it's manscaped.com, sideline20 to save yourself 20% off plus free shipping. We'll go ahead and take care of that for you guys. You guys get a little discount with that with your order. So manscaped.com, sideline20, get yourself 20% off plus free shipping. So let's get straight to the business, boys. We've got a lot to talk about, but first off, Nathan, you're the voice of Olu, and that final series playing against Jay Sarah, that you knew that one when you saw it on your calendar, and you knew once it was coming closer and closer, it was just getting more interesting and more interesting. Tell us, what was it like to broadcast during that series? What was the atmosphere like, and just what was the experience like overall?
Yeah, first of all, I think when the schedules came out, both of these teams kind of had that, circled on their calendars, not necessarily as, looking forward to that series, but just, they kind of knew that it was going to come down to that week. I don't think anybody anticipated that both teams would be undefeated in the Trinity League, going into that series. And so obviously that just kind of heightened the excitement, the tension, whatever you want to call it, that much more. I mean, I got to say, the series in total was electric all week. In 9 years of broadcasting for Orange Lutheran, I haven't seen anything like it. We started off this year, obviously, with interesting circumstances given the COVID-19 pandemic, but, it was just packed. All 3 games, standing room only. If you've never been to JSerra, they've got some stadium seating, pretty much, from the third base line all the way around to the first base line, and, pretty close to the dugouts on both sides. And I mean, there was a line of spectators behind the, stands on the first base side, on Olu's side, and there were there were lines of maybe 3 or 4 deep on JSerra's side, down in San Juan Capistrano. Same thing the following day at Hart Park, everything was packed. And then, of course, it came down to a winner take all game 3. Olu won the first game 8-2. Offense really shined. And then, JSerra had their ace pitcher on the mound for game 2. They took that one by a final of 2-0. And then, again, late in the ball game in game 3, JSerra was able to score 2 runs in the bottom of the 6th, which is, if you're comparing to a major league game, it's like the bottom of the 8th, right? You only allow your opponent 3 more outs to try to, make up those 2 runs and tie it. And, JSerra got a complete game, from their number 2 pitcher as well. And, hats off to them. They had their 2 best pitchers going in the last 2 games with the feeling that they might lose game 1. And, they executed their strategy and they got just enough to win. Overall, great series, electric. And to be quite honest, it's, I think it's possible. There are a lot of really good teams in Division I, but I think it's possible that they could meet up a 4th time with the Division I championship on the line. Again, I'm saying there's a lot of other teams, a lot of really good teams in there, and it's, the probability of it happening is low, but I could see it happening.
I mean, definitely. I mean, when you're talking about the Trinity League, you're seeing a crop of students that are usually the cream. The cream always goes to the top, and that top is the Trinity League when it comes to basically all of Southern California high school sports. So my short experience with the Trinity League is I went to Mater Dei my freshman year, and we had a very good baseball team. I believe the year before they won state, and then the year I was there, they either went deep in the playoff run. But like you said, to rely on your one's always going to be your ace, but to also rely on your number 2, that comes down to coaching. And JSerra seemed like they had to, draw it up perfectly fine. Knowing that if you lose game 1, that you're going to need to win the next 2. So, I mean, that's a great way to look at it. But definitely, I would love to see a game 4.
Yeah, I think to us it would be great to see it too. There are a bunch of other good teams like Harvard Westlake who could thwart it. They're on a 15-game winning streak heading into the playoffs. Huntington Beach is another one that could thwart it. I think Alex, you mentioned they were winners of 13 straight. There's a number of good teams that could thwart it, but I mean, JSerra's got to be considered the favorite going in because they've got, arguably the top 2 pitchers in Southern California, in Gage Jump and Eric Silva, and really that's all you need in the playoffs because you play 2 games a week. In the first round, you play 1, and then obviously 2 the rest of the way. And I mean, those 2 they were so hard to get to. For Orange Lutheran the last 2 games of that series that you have to think that, as long as they do what they, are expected to do, JSerra's got a pretty good chance to win just about every game.
Going on, obviously, with sort of going back to some type of normalcy, have a great record overall, does Olu. How have the players been able to focus as a whole? How has that affected them or not affected them as a whole this season?
Quite honestly, I don't think it really made that much of a difference. I mean, I know at least for Orange Lutheran, they had played a few games, before the season had started, and they had time to kind of gel. I know a couple of other teams, had that experience as well. Not everybody did, but during the season, it seemed normal. There was one instance with Orange Lutheran where they had a player who was exposed. He did end up having to sit out the 10 days, but thankfully he didn't get sick, and he was able to return to the team and still provide and help out. But overall, I mean, aside from seeing masks, in the stands and all that stuff, I mean, it felt like a regular season condensed because it was 2.5 months instead of 3.5 months like it would be in a regular year. But yeah, I mean, from my experience, what I saw, it didn't really seem to have too much of an effect, and we're thankful that there wasn't any outbreak or anything like that. They all stayed safe, followed the protocols, and thankfully it was a good season to this point.
To go ahead and extend a little bit more of that answer from Nathan, I know from Huntington Beach's standpoint, they had some seats that were closed off, and the stadium seating that they have there at Huntington Beach, and throughout the travels for Huntington Beach, it seemed like they had some seats that were closed down in the homestand for any road game or just any of the games that I went to. There were some seats that were closed off just to continue to practice that social distancing. And I know Huntington Beach, they did an excellent job trying to continue to practice on with that social distancing, to go ahead and just piggyback from what Nathan said. But, before we even jumped on the podcast today, Nathan, you seem to feel pretty strongly about this first round bye, that Jay Serra got a first round bye. You seem to feel pretty strongly about that, and you hadn't seen that for a very long time, right?
Yeah, I don't know if strongly is the right word. I just thought it was weird because in 9 seasons plus, of looking at Division I brackets, I don't think I've ever seen a Division I team get a bye. I thought Jay Serra and or Harvard Westlake, if either of them were to get a bye, both of them, would have deserved it. I figured since Harvard Westlake had a 15-game win streak, they might get the nod for the number 1 seed. But, it just kind of goes to show there are still some discrepancies with the competitive equity model. I mean, the CIF, I know that they have the best intentions, and I like this model that they're going with. But, Division I, when they break it down, Division I in total has 36 teams for a 32-team bracket. And so, on a good year, when you have everybody qualifying, only 4 of those teams are going to miss the playoffs. But on a year like this, you have 5 teams who don't qualify. And in order to qualify for the playoffs, you have to finish in the top half of your league. Top 3 in a 6-team league, top 4 in a 7 or 8-team league. If not, then you have to have a 500 record or above overall to qualify for an at-large bid. And for the 5 teams that missed, we've got, 3 of them who finished a game below 500. One of them still finished with a winning record at league, even though they were, in 4th place out of the 6-team league. And you could easily just say, well, you could just pencil them in and have them play Jay Serra. I know that if I remember correctly, Coach Brett K at Jay Serra was kind of saying, we'd prefer to have an opponent so that we play a game and we stay in rhythm. But it is what it is. But in Division I, it's just something that I've never seen. Division I is the most competitive division in the CIF Southern section. By comparison, Division II had 44 teams this year, and they had 33 teams that qualified. And so now 2 of those teams are going to have to play a wild card game to face off against the number 1 seed. So they're playing that game either today or tomorrow. Again, I think, the competitive equity, model, I like it. I think it creates more exciting playoff atmospheres and playoff brackets. But at the same time, in a situation like this, it does lead to, situations where teams get byes. And it's, again, it's unusual, I think, is the word I'd use to see in Division I. But again, I mean, Jay Serra was so strong the last 2 games of the year. I think that, they deserve the number 1 seed, and they get to move on into the second round. This will be the first time in the last, I think, 3 or 4 playoff attempts that Jay Serra has gotten out of the first round. So, and they'll play Capital Valley or Chaminade in the second round, and it'll be another good game. So, unusual. But,
yeah, I'm more used to the basketball and football brackets. So is there an open division in baseball or no?
No, it's divisions 1 through 7.
Okay.
And what they do is, like football and basketball have the open division. The CIF goes through and takes the best 8 teams and puts them in the open division and lets them battle it out. And then I think they automatically qualify for regionals and state or something along those lines. Baseball hasn't gotten to that point. They basically throw you into a division based on a point system that goes on your previous 2 full seasons.
Yes.
Which, again, I get the measuring system there, but I think it's a little backwards, because you'll have a team that, say they have a really strong class of 2020 and they get boosted up into Division One. Well, all of a sudden, that senior class graduates, they have another great year, and they're stuck in Division One for 2021, and they have a really young and inexperienced team coming back, and now they have to take their lumps, and in doing so, they'll probably fall to Division Two, before the next time comes around that they get to come back up. The more forward way of doing it would probably be to just reach out to the coaches and say, hey, how's your team looking this year? But with so many schools, 400 or 300, something like that, you can't expect somebody to reach out to everybody and just kind of see how everything's going. So I understand why it is the way it is at this point. There's always going to be flaws in the system, but the open division is a good idea that maybe they might consider down the road. It just hasn't gotten there yet for baseball.
Yeah. Do you think is it competitive enough for an open division? Do you think I was maybe not an 18, but maybe like a 16 seed, open division baseball bracket? You think the SoCal baseball, or even I guess statewide, we would have enough talent pool?
Oh yeah, absolutely. One of the things that they try to do, and I think this is something that they've tried to do with baseball for a while in an unofficial capacity, is try to figure out who a state champion might be. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Boris Baseball Classic. It's hosted by Jay Serra in Mater Dei, and what they try to do is they try to get the 16 best teams from Southern California in a bracket, and then they try to get the 16 best teams in Northern California in a bracket. Whoever wins those 2 brackets faces off towards the end of the year to determine an unofficial state champion. So yeah, I think an open division is possible. I think there is a way that you can determine who the best 8 or 16 teams are in a regular season. It's just about whether they think it's a good idea and whether they can put it into motion.
Absolutely. I mean, the Boris Classic is always something to look forward to every year round. It's just unfortunate because of how COVID went down. There's a couple of teams and a couple of programs that weren't able to participate. I know a lot of the Huntington Beach programs weren't able to have or be able to participate in that. I know Huntington Beach High School, they weren't able to really participate in these type of tournaments because of the district just staying, hey, just here in Huntington Beach. So any schools around here, that's who you guys are going to play against pre-league. So I wanted to jump straight into this, Nathan. I wanted to ask you, what were your thoughts when you woke up Sunday morning, you saw the brackets? What were you thinking? Like the matchups that you saw, there was a lot of great matchups going on for this first round. But what were your thoughts when they were released?
Honestly, I tend to try to, tamp down any expectations for the brackets. That's I don't envy the CIF Southern section for the job that they have to do in determining where everybody has to go. Again, aside from seeing the bye week the bye in the first round, everything else looked pretty good to me. In terms of intriguing matchups, I mentioned to you earlier that Huntington Beach and Santa Margarita, I think, is a really intriguing matchup. It's going to be played at Huntington Beach, which has a short porch, to left, a little bit longer to right. 2 very good offensive teams. Santa Margarita had a 13-game win streak at one point this season, but then they ended up losing 8 straight in the Trinity League at one point as well. So it's been kind of up and down for them. Really good senior class, really good sophomore class. Huntington Beach has probably been one of the, if not the most consistent public school in Division I over the last, 5-6 years. I know that they've got, they're well-rounded. They've got good offense. They've got good pitching. But that's one of the matchups that I had circled for Division I. I like Damien against South Hills. A couple of really good San Gabriel Valley teams battling out in Division I. I think Corona Redondo Union is going to be a good one. I keep looking off to the side. I'm looking at the bracket that I've printed out. So Corona Redondo Union, I think, is a good one. Matthew Dahlquist for Redondo Union's flat out good pitcher, really good pitcher. And I think on the road they'll cause some fits for Corona. Miracosta Foothills intriguing. Miracosta has come on strong lately. Foothill, was off to a really good. They were off to a really great record until the last couple of weeks. They stumbled a bit going into the playoffs. King versus Servite, Riverside versus the Trinity League. That's a good matchup. And then Arcadia and Dana Hills, two teams that have prided themselves on good pitching, is a good matchup as well. There's a lot of them, but those are the ones that I think are going to be really good games in round one.
And Nathan, is there a big difference within public and private school within baseball? Because I want to say outside of Long Beach Poly and Corona Centennial within football, it's just been dominated by private schools. So like, what's the fall off, if there is any?
I don't think the discrepancy is as pronounced as it is in football and maybe other sports. There's a lot of really good public schools for baseball. Obviously Ayala is a good one in this bracket. They're out of Chino Hills. Riverside King, after they lost to Orange Lutheran in the season opener, they went on to win 9 or 10 straight. They've done really well out in Riverside. There's a lot of these public school teams that are, pretty much annual contenders in Division One. Ukaipa's come on strong as a public school. Corona's always been there. Beckman's always been there. So you always see maybe 1 or 2 private schools that are in the top 4. In this case, 3 of the top 4 are. But the CIF, so the Division I championship, I'd say, is probably the hardest to win in all of high school sports because it's single elimination. One little thing, can cost any of these teams a chance. And so I think that really levels the playing field. So, on paper it would look that way, but I would have to say that I think the playing field's a little bit more level in baseball than it is in other sports.
All right, Nathan, let's go ahead and jump and talk playoff baseball. What does all you have to do to go ahead and be successful in the playoff game and just successful in the playoff bracket overall?
Yeah, first things first, just kind of, just continue to do what they've kind of done in the regular season, a 26-4 record against some really strong competition, in a sense, speaks for itself. But, this being the playoffs, obviously the teams are going to be a lot tougher with every game. They get Aliso Niguel in the first round. Aliso Niguel went 11-16 overall and 6-6 in their league, which is the Seaview League. It's a 4-team league. It's always competitive out of South Orange County, and they're always well coached. Craig Hansen has been the coach there for, I want to say 16 or 17 years, and he's always done a great job with them. They're going to be well coached. They're going to be disciplined. Orange Lutheran has kind of, made their mark on scoring early, and they've got good pitching. Luis Rodriguez, their junior right-hander, has been kind of their ace this year. He comes in with an 8-2 record and a ERA just over 1. 4-pitch mix, very fiery competitor, likes to work fast. It's at home, which is Hart Park. It's a deeper park. So line drives and ground balls are going to do it for you. You're not going to want to try to hit it out of the park because, when it gets cold, it just kind of dies in the outfield, and it makes for some easy fly ball outs for the outfielders. So really what it comes down to is just, scoring early. Rodriguez will – Rodriguez has to pitch well. The defense has to obviously not allow extra outs, any free passes, errors, things like that. They've got to play clean defense. But again, if Coach Eric Borba has wanted his team to jump out early and kind of keep the foot on the gas pedal because other teams have started to come back at late in ball games in some instances, and they have had the tendency on some occasions to kind of slow things down, but that's not really the time to do it in the playoffs. So yeah, I would say try to score early, clean defense, don't allow any extra outs, and they should be fine. Aliso Niguel will provide a challenge, but Lou's done very well at home this year as well.
No, man, that's one thing I always love about California high school sports in general is that playoffs are so competitive. You don't know what you're gonna get. When I played, we had 1 year we got eliminated in the first round, and then the next year we made it to the semis. So if baseball is the same thing, which it sounds even more competitive, matchups. It's all about matchups, right? It comes down to who's on the mound, and if the bats are awake or not, right? Like it sounds so simple, but that's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah, and that's what makes baseball, such a tough sport to rank and to gauge, is because you have, 9 players on the field at one time, and if one of them makes a mistake, that could be that could cost you a ball game, right? There have been teams where there have been seasons where, Orange Lutheran has been projected to make a deep run in the playoffs, and they've lost in the first round. There have been others where, they'll finish maybe second or third in league, and they've gone to the quarterfinals. It really, like you said, it does depend on the matchups. If you don't have a strong number 2 pitcher and the team you're facing does, and you might be the top rank, you might be the higher ranked team, but that pitcher might have his best performance of his career, and could knock anybody out. I think that's what makes single elimination so difficult. I know a lot of people, including myself, would like to see this turn into like a best of 3, but I know that takes time. It's very time consuming, especially when you're talking about kids graduating and all that in June, and in some cases these days May. But you're absolutely right. I mean, it depends on the matchup. It depends on who you run against, and it all kind of hinges on playing that that error-free baseball game. Because again, I mean, in this division and in these playoffs, it could well come down to one mistake, and that one mistake could cost you a ball game.
And all of these teams that are in this bracket, and you said it well, just like that, one error can be the difference maker in the ball game. And it's all about, even some of these schools can be very good 2-out rally type of teams where, hey, you just prolonged that inning. You just made your pitcher throw more innings. That requires more work. That requires his pitch count to come up, which is more of a probable for an error to happen, for him to leave a hanging breaking ball. And everybody in this league is capable of crushing a hanging breaking ball, definitely, because these are guys that are going to be Division I in the NCAA level, and even in the prospects, being a major league prospect there. So, Nathan, I want to put you on the hot seat. I know you talked about multiple matchups, but come Thursday, we're just going to say Thursday. I know your game is tomorrow, but come Thursday, what's the one game that you're going to tell someone to watch?
I mean, to be quite honest, there's a couple of them that I'm kind of torn between. One of them is your game. Huntington Beach against Santa Margarita, I think is going to be a lot more intriguing than maybe it looks on paper. That one has the potential to be a high-scoring contest, lots of offense, perhaps. I would also put a circle around Corona versus Redondo Union. Corona's a scrappy team under Andy Wise. They've always been a good team, and they're an annual playoff contender. Redondo Union's a team that came up from Division II a couple of years ago. But again, they've got the number 1 pitcher in Matthew Dahlquist, who can beat just about anybody. Heck, he beat Orange Lutheran back on April 14th by a final of 3-2. So, that one could be a very tightly competitive ball game as well. That one's being played in the Inland Empire. And then, the third one would probably be Martin Luther King versus Servite. King is a very good program out of Riverside. Head coach Steve Madrill has a lot of pride for his community, and gets his players to buy in like no other coach really I've seen. In the Southern section, they've really bought in this year, and they had a great season, 23-5 overall, and they were champions of the Big 8 League. But Servite is a scrappy team, and they're probably going to throw Kai Negretti, who has had a fantastic year on the mound. He's a great two-way player. And they've got the offense at the top of the order, and actually a kid named Augie Gutierrez toward the bottom of the order who could make a difference in that game as well. I think that one has the potential to end up close too. So those would probably be the 3 that I would recommend.
Absolutely. I definitely think there's going to be a ton of matchups that you got to tune into. I'm definitely going to say that Huntington Beach versus Santa Margarita game as well. I mean, any Trinity League team is always going to give you your money's worth. There's always going to be a good one. And this will be the second time that Huntington Beach will face off against a Trinity League team. I mean, they've been pretty just taking on the competition nearby in Huntington Beach, there in Westminster, at Newport Beach, there at Newport Harbor. So it'll be a nice little test for them right away just to go into it, play against a Trinity League team. That's going to be a good one, 3:15 first pitch time there at Huntington Beach. That's all the time we have left here on Sideline Sports Podcast. We thank you all so much for tuning into this one. If you guys like this episode, please give this episode a thumbs up. And to make it a little fun for you folks, comment down your high school that you'll be rooting for this year in the CIF Southern Section playoff bracket. We want to hear where all of our fans are coming from. We want to hear about where your alma mater is and who you're going to be rooting for these next couple of days, because it's going down to the wire. It's a one and done. It's you win it or you go home. That's all there is to it, as the old saying goes. But we want to take the time to say thank you so much to Nathan Percy, SoCal News Group reporter and the voice of Orange Lutheran baseball. Nathan, thank you so much for being on the podcast, man. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Likewise, I appreciate you having me on again, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you guys as well. And again, best of luck to Huntington Beach on Thursday, and looking forward to this. It's going to be a great next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Nathan. The best of luck to you, to Orange Lutheran. Heck, who knows? Maybe they'll run into each other and something later on down the line in some future rounds or anything like that. But as always, pleasure to have you on. On the bottom side of the screen, that is Jose Duran, soccer insider for Sideline Sports Podcast. Jose, you already know the deal. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Nathan, for your time. It's great talking CIF baseball. And best of luck, like Alex said, both teams coming up.
And of course, that is Mark Vargas on the bottom left corner. He is the NCAA football, the NFL, combat sports, and NBA insider. Mark, we didn't talk in NBA because I know you had a lot to say, but you know what? It's high school sports, baby, and I know you love your high school sports.
You know, look, everybody's a fan of the NBA. Everybody's a fan of the NFL. Everybody's a fan of the MLB. Nobody is going to see any of those games if it doesn't start in the high school level. So, you know what? Shout out to all teams playing in the playoffs. Good luck. Seniors, hey, go out with a bang. You know, win or lose, leave it all on the field, you know. I'm excited. I'm going to try. You know, I haven't watched any baseball this year, but I'm going to watch some games. I'm excited. I grew up playing travel ball, you know, grew up playing Little League, and I don't know, man. I could smell the chalk on the dirt. I could, you know, hear the hay batter. You know, I could hear everything. So, you know, good luck to everybody. Good luck to you, Nate. I hope you have a good game, Olu. And then Alex, you know, same with you with HB, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Always appreciated. That's going to be a little more pressure for Nathan and I to have to paint that picture and make it a little easier for all of our listeners and all of our viewers that are going to be tuning into these playoff games to paint the picture, make them feel like they're there at the ballpark, as we encourage each and every one of you guys to be in attendance to your local contender in high school. I would definitely recommend it. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to see some top-notch baseball. But I'm Alex Naveja from Sideline Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning into this one. Once again, hit the thumbs up, comment your favorite high school down below, your alma mater, and give a shout out to your high school, and hit the subscribe button down below. We're just around the corner from number 300. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the NBA playoffs, the CIF Southern Section playoffs, and all other SoCal sports. Have a good one, everybody.